here we are.
Hey, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. It starts with fear. My fear to begin with. The fear that they would never ever bring back Daredevil as he was. And you gotta remember when season 3 ended, when the series was canceled and I started crying myself to sleep every night, we were at a turning point in superhero media. We started seeing the shift in the zeitgeist where every blockbuster was based around a comic book property, and those were the only films that people were going out to the theater to see. What once had to fight to be taken seriously was now consuming our culture like a cancer. Even the most niche characters were starting to get stuffed into the money-making machines, pumping out more watered-down, mass-produced products that with each and every iteration felt more stale, more sauceless. Movies made by individuals with a vision started to become products crafted by committees, sold to everyone from the hardest core of comic book fan to your neighbor who has never read a comic to your Uncle Gary who owns the butcher shop down the block. And when that happens, you have studios driven by fear of being different, fear of underperforming. The films of that era, not every single one of them of course, but too many of them were so scared to let a single real emotion linger. But then,
Bless me, Father, for I've sinned.
there was Daredevil. Netflix's Daredevil was shooting 13-minute, no hidden cut, one-take fight scenes that were often more about Matt Murdock's perseverance than about the absurd display of technical filmmaking, of genuine craft and care behind the camera. There was Daredevil, dedicating entire episodes to supporting characters' past mistakes, their past trauma, recontextualizing the last 39 hours of television we have spent with them. As the world's superhero films got more and more expensive, they started to look worse. The texture, the color, the pulp, and the grit was being sucked out of these movies like a parched puppy guzzling it down on a putridly humid day. But then there was Daredevil, with its modest budget getting tighter and tighter, always finding a way to pull off episode after episode, all packed with purposeful shots that weren't just pretty but had precise intent, that carried weight in their style and emotional impact. It's almost shameful how well crafted Daredevil was, and it was a sin that Marvel Studios as a whole barely acknowledged what the Netflix show was achieving on every artistic level. Charlie Cox gave perhaps possibly the greatest performance of any actor to ever put on a cowl.
I'm not trying to impress the pizza guy.
His dedication, even when the writing wasn't at its best, kept you and me entirely engrossed in Matt's tormented world of rage and fire. Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk is right next to Heath Ledger's Joker in my mind, giving Shakespearean soliloquies left and right with a specific cadence that should not work in live action.
This world around us is preoccupied with celebrity weddings and videos of cats.
Yet makes his Fisk feel like a terrifying 200-pound traumatized 10-year-old boy. You ask me, Karen Page is perhaps the most fleshed out and captivating comic book love interest, comic book supporting character of all time. And that's in no small part due to Deborah Ann Woll's ability as a storyteller. Her eyes in any given moment speak worlds of unsaid feelings, pain, vulnerability. Fuck me, dude, every supporting character had a voice, not just through the all-too-human performances across the board, but through character writing that even when thrown into messy plots involving ancient mystical ninjas,
and the only protection this world has against the hand.
Wow.
allowed the smallest of moments to hit with a humanity that is so fundamentally rare in the genre. Those first 3 seasons mean the world to me. It stands on the Mount Rushmore of comic book movies and TV that transcend the usual setbacks of the genre and genuinely feel like personal and expressive art. Daredevil made young me want to watch Old Boy. Daredevil made me want to imitate it. Daredevil kept the spark lit and my hope alive. Hope that there is room for someone who loves comic books and who loves quote-unquote real films. Hope that there is an overlap. Hope that they can be one and the same, and hope that someone like me could try to make them. I mean, to boil it down and shut the fuck up before I smash my fucking head off with a car door. Daredevil was a Marvel Comics television show that was doing the opposite of 92% of Marvel movies, of fucking superhero movies. Not just in subject matter, not just in darkness or depth, but in artistic craft. acting, filmmaking, storytelling, I'm not sure there is a single live-action adaptation that comes close to capturing what these fictional icons can be if treated with an overabundance of genuine care. But studios don't care about care. Studio politics don't give a damn, and neither do corporate mergers. The Netflix universe was dead, washed away like blood in the water. People were mad. I was mad. We didn't deserve something as wonderful as Daredevil, and we knew it. The cries of the fans only grew louder and louder in the years following its cancellation. The church choir echoes could not go unheard.
Save Daredevil. There's a thing, you can sign it. Sign it.
I feel like more and more people started saying the same kind of shit that I was adolescently, incessantly screaming about for years.
Wait, holy fuck, this is kind of the best thing Marvel has ever done.
You took that away from me! You took everything!
Rumors started circulating loud enough that even the fake ones were probably being read by the people at the top. The outcry was steady, and the realization must have hit Kevin like a bullseye-thrown stapler smacking you right in the forehead. They were never going to be able to ignore Daredevil, even if they wanted to. They were never ever going to find better actors for these characters, and if they wanted it to succeed, they would have to do something they were so deeply afraid of. Make something that was at times dark, make something that was at times not a crowd pleaser, make something that was undeniably a risk. But they would never do that, so instead they decide to throw us a bone.
Well, that's the guy I've been worried about this whole time. Kingpin.
Here is Vincent D'Onofrio in Hawkeye. He may or may not be the same Wilson Fisk you saw in Season 3. He definitely won't have the writing of that show to back him up, but it was a similar performance, albeit a bit more comic booky and cartoony. Is it the same Fisk? We can't really answer that because we don't want to piss you off. Here is Charlie Cox in No Way Home with CGI glasses for some reason. Is this the same Matt Murdock you fell in love with from the Netflix series? We can only assume and hope the fact that he's sharing a scene with Spider-Man will make you so excited you forget what you lost. Here he is in She-Hulk, making nods to the fact that maybe Nelson, Murdock, and Page exist, but never fully confirming or denying if this is the same person.
I'm Daredevil.
Here, Marvel was testing out a lighter, swashbuckling, one-night stand Matt Murdock that can chill with Hulk's abomination of a son.
Holy God, what are you showing me?
A worm on a hook, rainbow sprinkles on a fast-melting ice cream cone. And of course I was happy to see them. Of course any fan would be. You give Charlie and Vincent any material and they will elevate it, but still, once the bright color is gone, once the taste of unflavored wax hits your tongue and all you're left with is a whiff of dripping, sticky, stale vanilla. So, naturally, at some point they have to announce what exactly they plan to do with these characters if there even is a plan.
This is very special. Daredevil Born Again.
And yet, I was still overwhelmed by doubt, filled with fear.
Fuck you.
The original announcement made no promise that it would be a season 4. It made no statement on Karen and Foggy. In fact, they mostly avoided that question. All the focus was on Fisk and Matt being back in action in their own Disney Plus series.
Does it feel like a continuation or like...
I don't know anything. The sense is it's going to be a new beginning. It's going to be different. Like Kevin said, it's a season 1. It's not season 4, so it's a whole new thing.
All the focus was on the Daredevil brand, not the Daredevil characters, and as any self-respecting Daredevil fan will tell you, the reason that original series worked was because of its insistence to be a character piece first and foremost. Not just a dissection of Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk, but on each and every supporting player. Would Marvel Studios forget that? Would Marvel Studios, almost comically known at this point for taking control over projects from the artists behind them, taking control and diluting them, would Daredevil be diluted? Would he be Disneyfied? And would it still work if he was?
I'm Daredevil.
The fascinating thing about Daredevil Born Again, what makes it so interesting to talk about and why I've made this intro so fucking long, is that you are dealing with the remains of a series that was just that, diluted Daredevil. You are dealing with a reboot that originally believed it could function without Foggy, without Karen, without the world the Netflix series had done such a good job at establishing. You are dealing with a reboot that shot so much material, almost an entire season's worth, that attempted to be born again without the soul of the original. original. You were dealing with a reboot that was feeling so off to everyone making it that the two lead actors had to call a meeting with the higher-ups and come up with a plan to put the soul back into something that had spent hundreds of everyone's working hours actively avoiding.
We shot the first 6 episodes. Vincent and I had expressed a concern. We were trying to be good, team players and have faith around what was being done, but it was starting to get worrying that it was a completely different show. To Marvel's credit, during those strikes, they were able to watch what we had and see that it wasn't quite working.
It needed the connection to the Netflix show. It needed the other characters to come back, because our success in that show, we believe, is not just because of us and the writing. We believe it's because of the whole cast. The other iteration wouldn't have had that. It was a straight up, hey, forget what you just saw. This is what we're doing. That was tough for me to swallow.
As I've talked about way too goddamn much, it's not rare to see superhero movies reshot to death to be funnier, to be quicker, to be more easily digestible.
Yeah.
What is rare is to see such a high-profile project that is reshot to try and add back in the depth that was missing. Reshot to try and add darkness, intensity, emotional weight. Reshot to try and showcase some kind of vision behind the camera. You are dealing with a show made originally that was scared to be anywhere near as gritty, raw, intense, soulful as the Netflix series, that was recrafted, remixed because they were terrified fans would reject something that wasn't as gritty, raw, or soulful. Born Again, by nature, is the man without fear being created entirely out of it. And that truly, in the least hyperbolic manner old HiTop can muster, is a goddamn tragedy. But before we dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, I've been trying to level up, no longer be a joker or a fool, but be the best creative force I can be. And the best way to do that is with the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. When we were making our movie, I was the hack writer, director, producer, camera operator, and editor, but the one area I knew nothing about was sound design. So recently I've been taking some Skillshare classes on it. Transform Reality Through Audio, a beginner's guide to sound design by Robert J.P. Oberg, is perfect for those of you who, like me, want to make your storytelling more engaging through audio. I love how Robert passionately talks about the craft of sound design and why it's so important to understand and connect with how you want your film, your video to tell a story through the unseen. If you've noticed that the recent videos I've been making are feeling a little bit faster paced, a little more loud and attention grabbing, that's because recently I've been putting a lot more time and effort into the soundscape of the videos. So a stupid little skit of Mickey Mouse beating my ass goes from dumb and boring to dumb and comically intense. See what I mean? That's the power of sound. Skillshare's class is taught by passionate professionals in all creative fields, so if you're like me and want to practice sound design or you want to focus on your color grading, Skillshare has classes not just in film, but art and illustration, graphic design, photography, anything creative you want to expand your knowledge on, they got your back. They also have a super dope and nice 7-day free trial and a risk-free 30-day money-back guarantee, but it gets even better, my dude, because the first 500 people who use my link in the description or scan the QR code will receive 20% off their first year of Skillshare. So start leveling up, man. Start exploring, start learning, start evolving with Skillshare today. Thanks, guys. If not season 4, then what? Before we get started,
Does anyone want to get out?
I'm gonna kill you!
I know what some of you are gonna say. You can't treat Born Again like it's Daredevil Season 4. It's unfair to compare this new venture with a mostly new creative team behind it to the original series. And sure, I might agree with you, man. If it wasn't trying so hard at every reshot turn to remind us of the prior series, if its emotional basis wasn't based around the central villain of the original series, if its core defining tragic loss was not rooted in the core trio of that original series, we are dealing with the wreckage of a reboot sequel that originally had Foggy die off screen, Karen never once mentioned.
We didn't see the Foggy death. They were trying not to tie the old show with the new show so that people felt, well, I don't know who this person is, I don't want to watch it. The idea would be that you understood the emotion and you didn't have to understand, you didn't have to know the context.
I kind of, as a writer, completely disagree with that.
We are dealing with the wreckage of that fear that Disney would frankly not understand why people love the original show, that would only take its 2 leads, none of the original writers, none of the brilliant supporting cast, and give them a CG budget so fans can clap like seals at Daredevil finally using his Billy Club grappling hook to swing around on rooftops. Only to realize that it's absurd to write off those characters, only to bring in new supporting characters that have the emotional depth of a CW Season 4 tech guy. Why Why waste so much talent to make Disney-fied, safe, fun Daredevil only to scramble to reshoot, rework most of it to feel like actually fucking Daredevil? A reboot that originally hired a duo that's claimed to fame, and I mean no disrespect, I haven't seen the show, was a 2010 CIA drama that on the surface looks like every single 2000 CIA cop drama.
Covert Affairs, a new original series, premieres July 13th on USA.
And then went on to fire those guys, kick them out the door like nothing happened, and hire Dario Scardapane, who was literally responsible for some of the darkest and most guttural superhero television ever made. Said superhero television being a Netflix Daredevil spin-off.
Bang.
Daredevil Born Again is the opposite of Joss Whedon's Justice League. It's a series where the best parts of it were amended after the fact to try and add soul to something that was most likely entirely void of it. It's a series where the parts that work and resonate are the parts that feel like a season 4. So I don't know if it's unfair to say you cannot compare the two series when the show is doing so much work to make sure we know that this is the same story. Matt says at one point, and perhaps the most meta moment of the show, that his whole new life feels like a dream without Karen, without Foggy, without the soul of the Netflix show, without them, without its foundation. The new world he's living in feels
like fake.
The new team they eventually brought in to save Born Again is aware of how fucked the original Born Again was, and I feel deeply for them having to shoot around something they did not believe in, something they knew we would not be bought off by.
I am Muse!
They got handed a shitty hand, a piss-poor deck of desperately out-of-touch decisions, and are trying to play and charm their way out of it. And what we are left with is a show that is making up for the pre-Overhaul's original intent. Let's imagine they had stuck with the original plan for Born Again, from script all the way to fucking screen. The version that did in fact never mention Karen, one that mentioned Foggy's off-screen death as a spit of exposition.
You're talking about your friend, Foggy Nelson, right?
One that loosely referenced the original 3 seasons as if maybe in some world it happened. Would you give a shit about any of these people? Does Born Again pull any of its weight in establishing any emotional investment from you? You only care about Fisk because you watched the original series where he was developed with nuance, with care, the original series where you saw him realize the only way to make the city he wanted, the only way to clean it up was to own it. Why would you ever be shocked by the fact that Vanessa cucked him if you didn't already bear witness to their twisted love story? You only care that Matt is broken by the death of Foggy because you've seen how much light Foggy brought into Matt's life. It's not just something you can mention, it's something that must be experienced and felt over the course of years of friendship, of brotherhood.
The city needs me in that mask, Foggy.
Maybe it does. But I don't. I only never needed my friend.
You only know who Bullseye Dex is because you watched season 3. You know his deeply dark, fragmented, and fractured mind.
I'm drowning in deep water, and I don't know whether I'm swimming for the surface or the bottom.
One that tries so hard to experience empathy, to find a North Star, but is almost unable to. You saw how he was manipulated, sent to hell, forced to be a pawn in Fisk's forever game of chess with the devil. Born Again in its current form has to assume you have investment in all that, otherwise there is barely any new characterization to be seen. If you have not seen Netflix's Daredevil, Matt is an archetypical brooding vigilante. If you have not seen Netflix's Daredevil, you do not know Jack Murdock, you do not know Maggie, you do not know Father Lantom, you do not know Stick. You do not hear a single mention of these people in Born Again. If you have not seen Netflix's Daredevil, you do not know the abuse of Fisk's father, you do not know Wilson's deep-rooted insecurity, you do not know how he doesn't just metaphorically need Vanessa to complete him, but he legitimately loses so much of his courage without her. You do not know that he, without her, looks in the mirror and sees the very same fearful child drenched in blood, stagnated and frozen in time, unsure what to do next. Point is, if the common complaint to the complaint is that this is Disney Daredevil, not Netflix Daredevil, my criticism of that complaint is that me, you, and everyone from Timbuk fucking 2 would not give a shit about any of these ideas, themes, emotions unless Netflix Daredevil had done all the legwork for this show. So once more, I ask, if not season 4, what is Born Again? If you must view the original series as the emotional foundation of Born Again, if you have to watch that original series to have any emotional investment in Born Again, then I only think it's fair to compare the higher budget, highly advertised Rebirth to that original. And if this was a season 4, what does it change about the characters? In what way does it evolve them? Or does it spend most of the season regressing and repeating the same notions that we once loved in the Netflix show? I personally believe it's fair to say that we've heard this confession before, and the first time it had meaning. You've seen the arcs Born Again presents done before, you've seen it in the original show, you love the emotional beats there, and now those beats are being repackaged and rebranded last minute to make us invested in the new product.
He's back.
And don't get me wrong, this is not the fault of the new team, not in the slightest. This is the comic book problem brought to the small screen in a way that is as mangled as my dog's chew toy. What is the arc of Born Again? What do the characters go through, and what is the storytelling purpose point of the series? Ignoring the original pre-overhaul intent of an edgy legal procedural, I think this is a story about a hurting Matt Murdock who just lost his light in Foggy. This is a story about Wilson Fisk, whose basis for his criminal confidence resides entirely in Vanessa, being cheated on and needing the public approval to make him feel big, feel worthy once more, and then realizing that means nothing to him. This is a story about two broken individuals fighting their inherent inner child and that child's desire to fix the trauma they cannot, trying to refrain from the violence that has defined their alter egos. Matt and Wilson desperately trying not to be Daredevil and Kingpin. Great idea, honestly, great idea. My problem is that we've seen that exact sentiment before, not once, but twice.
You and I have a lot in common.
We're nothing alike.
That's what you'll tell yourself.
Daredevil Season 1 is that parallel origin story. Matt must face the idea that someone as monstrous as Fisk could exist and take so much from the good people, the people who care, the people who love. Someone like that can take over a city and no amount of law, order, or justice can stop that.
Do you believe in the devil, Father?
I believe he walks among us, taking many forms.
What if you could have stopped him?
And Wilson has to reconcile with the fact that his idea of what makes the city better, his blunt and brutal method, his cutting ideology that he spent his entire life dedicating himself to, is not unquestionable. Fisk believes himself a tortured hero. His intentions, as misguided as they are in the first season, are to clean up the streets and control the uncontrollable. Drugs, crime, abuse. Matt also believes you can, you must, you have to fight against all those things until your dying breath. It's in how you fight where the two characters differ. The entire 13 hours of season 1 are dedicated to these humans that you've gotten to know, resent, love, and long to find some peace for, unwillingly accepting their comic book archetypes. Matt is the devil of Hell's Kitchen.
I didn't ask for that name.
And Fisk is the ill intent.
I always thought that I was the Samaritan in that story. It's funny, isn't it? How even the best of men can be deceived by their true nature.
So when the innate premise of Born Again is, what does Matt Murdock do when he can no longer allow Daredevil in his life because he wanted, even tried to kill Bullseye, tried to take a life? And what does Wilson Fisk do when, as mayor, he finally has the power he was always trying to amass, but is losing Vanessa as a result? If that was indeed the premise created entirely in post, the middle act loses that narrative momentum to me.
Fuck you.
I'm sorry, man, but having little ending stingers of violence and temptation in an episode that otherwise has nothing to do with that struggle does not create a compelling nor powerful journey for either character. The new storytelling team is trying to retroactively reinforce the parallel arcs of Matt and Fisk that were most likely originally entirely undercooked. They are trying to add some narrative force to something that was most likely originally stagnant and formless.
Miss Marvel. I'm not sure I'm familiar.
And even if that creative overhaul created this story and desperately tried to give it some tension through the editing, the often overbearing music, it's too similar a narrative to season 1 and season 3. And if you're going to tell that story again in a slightly different way, then it better be brimming with stellar writing and execution.
Okay, how about Daredevil? You've worked with him, right?
Is that it? Is that your best?
I don't know how you can make the story of a lone warrior taking on a corrupt institution, a web of lies, senseless violence that goes so deep it might even touch hell itself, feel so fucking lifeless.
Fake.
Perhaps the original writers could not figure out anything new to say about these two characters because their internal struggles have already been explored multiple times with far more detail and far more grace. Oh boy, Matt has given up Daredevil. He doesn't want to be Daredevil. Daredevil is like an addiction. It's not like you've seen that exact sentiment play out before.
I don't need him to be a part of me anymore. And I don't want him to be.
The difference being that the reshot horn sequences where Matt laments Foggy's death were added in the back half, added long after the original narrative was written, and when you compare that to the elegance of season 3, you are left with a pale imitation of the ever-present struggle of Matt's temptation. In season 3, when he lost his senses and lost his purpose, forced to briefly give up Daredevil when he desires to have nothing to do with Matt Murdock.
I'd rather die as the devil than live as Matt Murdock.
He's relegated himself to the basement of a church as if he's God's mistake, as if God has forgotten him, as if he's thinking reasonably so, I'm sick of God punishing me.
All I ever heard was people in pain, and all he ever gave any of us was silence.
But he can't avoid the devil, the call, the siren screams in the night. He hears their cries and does not hear any voice of reason, any voice of any God. And you know what he does? He makes himself a makeshift punching bag in the basement of God's chapel. Perhaps he's replicating or repeating the same trauma and pride that left him fatherless, left him so alone. In Born Again, a very similar character moment is repeated, except the depth is evaporated. He can no longer deal with the injustice he witnesses as Matt Murdock, so he slips out of his luxury apartment to spin a CG baton around against a textureless backdrop.
Is that it? Is that your best?
And it takes 5 episodes for us to arrive at this emotional point, not because the show plans to analyze any of his repression, but because the narrative simply did not exist in a form originally where Matt could put on that costume until more than halfway through. Despite the injuries, despite the pain or the pressure to not put on the mask, he must. The difference is that in season 3, Matt, believing himself to be entirely lost and broken due to the death of a loved one, decides to encourage these goons to kill him. Not an elite villain man, not a costume canon character, but a group of random thugs. He wants them to finish him, to end his pain in probably the most adult moment in any superhero medium.
God forgive me.
He's not ready to be the hero he once was, or even try to live as Matt Murdock, because he has not accepted that the trauma that defines him does not have to end him. Daredevil does not have to mean violence and death, loneliness and pain. Daredevil can mean hope. Can Matt Murdock be Daredevil, and can Daredevil be something greater than the pain? Can Daredevil be a selfless hero when Matt Murdock wants nothing more than to kill those who only bring him more and more tragedy? That was the question, the purpose of season 3, and now we are getting that purpose repackaged, remixed into the barely existent subtext of Born Again. At one point in Born Again, Heather says to Matt,
"Is this some sort of self-harm?"
And in season 3, an on-the-nose line like that never needed to be said because the entire fucking thematic question of the season was about that very notion.
It lets you hurt people. It makes you feel like it's for something important, something good, maybe even for God.
But that ain't the truth. We both know it.
Are he and Fisk one and the same? Is Daredevil an outlet for violence? Does he enjoy hurting people? Does he enjoy hurting, punishing himself? These questions have been pondered so many times, interrogated with depth and vulnerability, entire episodes dedicated to psychoanalyzing Matt across all 3 seasons. And to me, in the original finale, you left Matt in a place where he was trying to grow, where he had found some peace with how cursed and painful his life has been.
I realized that if my life had turned out any differently, that I would never have become Daredevil. And although people have died on my watch, people who shouldn't have, there are countless others that have lived. Maybe it is all part of God's plan. Maybe my life has been exactly as it had to be.
Maybe I've suffered so much, not because there is no God, but because it's a part of his plan that I use my pain to try and heal others. A beautiful yet painful life, one full of darkness, but also love and hope. And maybe he did grow in the 7-year time jump. Maybe he did continue down this more optimistic and hopeful path. Maybe he did find the balance. But all of that is immediately undone within the first 10 minutes of Born Again.
You want me to kill you? Come on! Kill me now! God knows I want you, but you don't get to destroy who I am!
When someone in need tries to push you away, you have to find the strength to hold on tighter. Take care of yourself, man.
And listen, dude, I don't mind that he tries to kill Dex after the death of Foggy. I don't mind him being reluctant to give into, to put on the mask. I mind the fact that for whatever reason, this is the most narratively interesting thing the pre-overall team could come up with, and the new team was forced to write around a retired Daredevil show.
It didn't feel like it was quite right, and it felt like we were starting to alienate some of the elements that had made the show successful in the first place, which is probably not a good thing.
I mind that directly or indirectly you were regressing the character and giving him a similar journey that we felt before. And not only that, man, but giving it to us with half the power, half the beauty, half the emotional intelligence.
Fuck it. He's back.
I feel for the new creative team, man, having only 2 episodes and some reshoots to add an arc for Matt. What is that final arc? I guess it's the fact that he tried to kill Bullseye and that sent him away from the people of Hell's Kitchen, away from Daredevil, and only by risking his own life and taking a bullet for his worst enemy can he allow himself redemption. Not a bad idea by any means, but when you have fucking Muse fucking Devil Day Afternoon and White Tiger thrown in the middle, it's hard to feel any sense of cohesion. It's hard to feel the impact of any kind of journey when the end result of that journey is so similar to the end of season 3, allowing Fisk to live, knowing all the harm he will continue to bring, and not allowing grief and vengeance to get the best of him. And Mother Maggie, Jesus Christ, this is only the beginning of retreaded ideas and notions meant to make you believe that Daredevil is back, baby.
He's back.
I mean, it's not like you've seen a love interest compare Daredevil to the very thing he's fighting, right?
I'm not sure you can put Muse and Daredevil in the same category.
I'm not so sure that you can't.
Muse tried to kill you, Daredevil saved you.
I saved me. They were both out there for themselves.
You think he's crazy?
The Punisher? No. I think he was inevitable.
Inevitable?
The moment that we let Daredevil or the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, whatever it is...
There's no connection.
Well, actually, I think it's a pretty straight line, Matt.
That's an entirely new and fresh idea, right?
I just don't think I can let myself fall in love with someone who's so damn close to becoming what he hates.
These kind of hollow echoes are especially noticeable, for me at least, in every single Punisher interaction across the series. Frank Castle shows up to have a condensed additional photography version of episode-long philosophical debates over the morals of killing.
Oh, you and your goddamn system. You and your goddamn system. Christ! We gotta bring him in for justice. Is that what we're gonna do? Your way's bullshit, Red. It doesn't work. I need him gone. It's gotta be permanent. It's gotta be finished. I understand.
Charlie and John could act out an entire improv stage play and I would be seated every single damn night because they are that fucking good at portraying these guys, that fucking good at making us invested. They're fucking damn good storytellers, but that doesn't change the fact that for me, these scenes feel, I don't know, like hollow remixes of a beautiful original song released a decade ago.
Pranced around the city in a pair of little boys' pajamas and a mask. Thank you for your service.
Can we really not think of anything fresher than, come on, Red, kill this scumbag. You know you want to. You know he deserves it.
Do it, Red.
Can we really not have the characters argue about anything else? Is the well that dry, man? And look, this is the comic book problem. Like I said, you are bound to retread and repeat similar notions, especially when you've told 40 hours worth of stories involving these people. I think my beef is that the show tries so desperately to recapture those exact same story beats to bait the audience, to bait you and me into believing that yes, this is just as powerful as the original series, just as smart, just as unique. But by its very nature of being a scrap together blend of two different creative teams, there was no way that it could ever feel anywhere close to as authentic. And I think the biggest victim of this character-wise is Big Willie. Wilson Fisk spends most of Born Again trying to keep his cool, masquerading behind politics and support from a broken city full of broken people needing and wanting change. We've kind of seen that play out before.
We're a guy who wears devil horns to save us. No. The devil of Hell's Kitchen. This masks terrorists.
We've seen it play out in a way that was built up naturally. We've seen him manipulate and game the system countless times. I guess the difference is now he's the fucking mayor.
I love New York.
And I find it hard to believe and fully buy into the fact that Fisk would be elected mayor so fast. I know, the original pre-Overhaul Born Again probably already had him in office when the series started, so I appreciate them trying to build that story up more in the pilot. I appreciate Matt slowly losing his shit over the fact that we might actually elect a scumbag into power. But when the reasoning for the people of New York ignoring Fisk's countless, horrendous, very public, very violent, corrupt crimes is simply
Mayor Fisk. That's the coolest fucking thing on the planet.
It not only feels a little rushed, but also just completely undermines Nadim's sacrifice, completely undermines the awesome deal and understanding that Matt and Fisk had.
The whole FBI corruption scandal agent, Nadim, all that. It's why my husband was acquitted.
But yeah, fuck me, right? I mean, look at the current state of the world. We will gladly elect a known criminal billionaire into any position of power, but something about Mayor Fisk just feels undercooked. Maybe it would work for me more if Born Again spent the entire season showing his rise to power, showing the dread Matt feels as he realizes that Fisk is going to win while Matt Murdock will continue to lose. That feeling of dread is entirely relatable to so many of us. That feeling of dread and foreboding could carry the season in a way that having Fisk in office by the end of episode 1 simply cannot. And by slowly building him up as mayor, you have time to develop new characters, new villains, new threats. And I hate to say this, but I even think it would have been a smarter move to let Fisk take a back seat for a portion of the season. Of course, the entire draw, the selling point is Cox and D'Onofrio back in action. It's seeing the two of them together again that will get people to tune in. The two of them together again for legit 2 fucking scenes across 9 hours of television. I think the fear was, is, and will probably always be due to the fact that season 2 is widely considered the worst season of Daredevil. I think the fear is misunderstanding the reason that was. It wasn't because they went with a different villain, a different threat for Matt to face. I mean, episodes 1 through 4 of season 2 is a brilliant stretch of television and Fisk does not appear once. Yes, the Ham plot did not work for a variety of reasons, none of which involve Fisk. Fisk was in season 2 the perfect amount, and when he showed up, his scene struck like a brilliant wave of thunder.
I'll chop both the heads off of that snake, and I'll spend more than $6 on postage to bring you down. You see, I've had a lot of time to reflect on my journey here, Mr. Murdock.
And the truth is, you will not get a better Fisk v. Matt story than season 1.
I'm gonna kill you. Take your shot.
Unless it's season 3, and that story is pretty hard to fucking top, my guy. And I'm not saying kick him off the show, God no, I'm saying if Vanessa was your secret baddie, the one who killed Foggy, the one who broke the deal Matt and Fisk had, then let her be the actual villain. Let her have the monologues, the intense scenes of cruelty. Don't confine her to therapy sessions and boring gangster meetings. Iterate on what the original established and go all in with her character. And dude, I adored her moment with Bullseye in the finale, because for the first time all fucking season, I was intimidated by a character. I was captivated watching her pull the puppet strings of a sick, twisted man who was holding on to his sanity, his mind, by the thinnest of threads.
Benjamin, I'm offering you a chance to get your mind back, your self. This is no way to live.
I miss the days where Wilson pretended to need a translator, pretended that he did not speak Mandarin just so everyone would underestimate his intelligence and overestimate his reliance on Wesley. I miss the days when he ate a steak dinner in prison while he watched a man die, munching down as if he's at a fancy restaurant, a VIP table.
But you won't suffer alone. I'll be here.
I miss him blowing up Russian territories in front of Vanessa, almost as if it's a grand romantic gesture, as if he's being heroic, noble, not caring about the casualties of the innocent. I miss the restrained demeanor he used to have, moments like this.
You, for instance, you've demonstrated an emotional weakness for children and women. I assumed that would extend to the elderly. So I baited the hook. Here you are.
I miss not knowing who is dirty. I miss all the twists and the reveals about who and how many are secretly answering to him. In Born Again, we see him form an anti-vigilante task force of corrupt cops, and we never really needed to see him do that before because the fun was assuming everyone was dirty, everyone was doing his bidding, everyone was answering to him.
I'm not your boss anymore. Wilson Fisk is.
This is a giant, terrifying man-child who could throw a tantrum at any moment. It seems that the team has taken that element of him from the original. They have taken the grand moments of outrage and the sometimes humorous moments of vile evil, but have forgotten the quiet moments of his brilliance, forgotten what made him a great villain to begin with. He no longer feels one step ahead. He no longer hides information from us. He's no longer capable without discussing his schemes with not just Vanessa, but his mayoral team.
Encouraging, Gallo! Encouraging!
I guess what I'm saying is that Born Again can have the most brilliant actor playing the most brilliant villain. Born Again can have him rip some guy's head off like a fucking watermelon, and yet, for some reason, Born Again for the first time ever made me grow numb to Wilson Fisk. I am no longer anticipating his next move, no longer intimidated by his fractured nature. I am left utterly unfeeling. And that is something I thought impossible. So what does Born Again bring to the table in terms of new narrative, in terms of new characters? Well, shit. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Here's the truth. I originally did not expect this to become an almost feature-length ramble, but maybe that's what's needed for me to fully express all my thoughts. So I'm sorry I had to split this into 2 parts, but part 2 will be out this month if I'm alive, and will hopefully be even better than part 1. You know, I once made a video called We Don't Deserve Daredevil, and I stand by that, but perhaps Daredevil deserves a lengthy analysis, whether that's the wonderful, vulnerable Daredevil we all love, or a deeply disappointing to me Daredevil with a new team of passionate artists behind it trying to find the all too missing, all too important humanity. Anyways, much love guys. I can't wait to hear what you think. Have a lovely day.